There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Hello and welcome to NTD News Today.
We have insights and perspectives on the stories shaping our world.
Breaking news, in-depth analysis, and inspiration to power your day. And first up, we are going to head into a House hearing on confronting the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. That's held by the Subcommittee on Higher Education and Workforce Development.
That's right, the committee is Education and the Workforce. The committee chair is Virginia Fox, a Republican from North Carolina, and the subcommittee chair, Burgess Owens, Republican from Utah. We'll be hearing witnesses from different Jewish organizations, as well as a student from Yale who has some harrowing stories of some anti-Semitic incidents there on Yale campus.
So let's tune in.
The Subcommittee on Higher Education and Workforce Development will come to order. I note there's a quorum is present. Without objections, the chair is recognized to call a recess at any time. I'd also like to welcome committee members who are not members of the subcommittee and are waiving on to this process for today's hearing. Thank you for joining us today for this very timely and consequential hearing. I want to begin by expressing sympathy for the Jewish members of our community that have felt endangered, discouraged, and disappointed by the exposure of anti-Semitism throughout our country. I also want to thank our witnesses for coming forward to testify and working with our committee during this difficult time of upheaval. This committee is convened today to address the scourge of anti-Semitism spreading like wildfire on college campuses. As a first step toward eradicating this evil, this committee has invited Jewish campus and community leaders to help us understand the source of this proliferation. I recognize that anti-Semitism is not a new problem. It has taken on various forms throughout our history, the most noted prior to October 7th were the horrors of the Nazi Holocaust. Both will be forever remain a stain in the annals of human history. The modern form of anti-Semitism is more subtle, for it is often disguised under progressive political innuendos. For example, Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, steeped deeply in the doctrine of Marxism, is anything but inclusive for Jews. Evidence shows that campus DEI bureaucracies play a major role in propagating the spread of anti-Semitism. There's a dirty little secret at the heart of DEI as it seeks to dismantle systems of oppression. It divides the world into oppressors and the oppressed, ascribing collective guilt to the oppressors and collective innocence to the oppressed. But what does this mean for the Jewish community? You would think the DEI industry would be sympathetic to the Jewish people's history of oppression, persecution, and wholesale slaughter. But no, the DEI hierarchy places the Jewish people at the very bottom of the oppression spectrum. A study from the Heritage Foundation explains that how diversity officers fuel anti-Semitic fire. After searching through the Twitter feeds of 741 campus DEI personnel, the Heritage J. Green found that 96% of the Israel-related tweets were either critical of Israel or explicitly anti-Semitic. DEI programs are, at its core, anti-Semitic because it ascribes collective guilt to the entire state of Israel for the mere existence. The core principles of this Marxist ideology is not diversity, equity, or inclusion. It is instead discrimination, intolerance, and bigotry toward individuals thought to belong to a wrong group. So rather than curbing discrimination on campuses, these DEI bureaucracies stoke racial tensions. A report from the National Association of Scholars found that DEI officials routinely organize race-segregated events, race-exclusive affinity groups, Race-segregated spaces such as black-only dorms, black-only graduations, and race-specific training. You literally cannot make this stuff up. If it reminds anyone of the hate-fueled 1960s days of Deep South Jim Crow segregation and the roaming gangs of KKK bullies, it's because it is. Hopefully our witnesses from Yale, Ms. Tartak, can speak more about her experiences with campus DEI and if it made her feel included. I cannot think of a time since the 1960s when a group of students were more blatantly targeted, harassed, bullied, intimidated, and physically assaulted than Jewish students in the last month. Swastika graffitied over campuses, Jewish students being segregated in classrooms by their professors, Jewish students at the New York City's Cooper Union being forced to lock themselves in a college library and later escorted out the back door. What is the core of this problem? A gang of face-covering, cowardly bullies who feel no shame and who feel no sphere of accountability from college administrators where this hate is being taught. Chants for genocide ring loudly. A Cornell history professor called the pure evil of the terrorist attack on civilian innocence exhilarating. While anti-Semitic speech might be free, it deserves our moral condemnation. With respect to all free speech, this committee fully supports students' rights to political expression. What we do not and will not support is terrorism and threats of violence. We can no longer support the use of taxpayer dollars to cultivate, nourish, and grow hate on our campuses. I look forward to hearing from our witness accounts of exclusive, and divisiveness that are now being propagated and promoted throughout our country. DEI definitely plays a large role in fomenting this hate, but in what other areas should we look at to hold our universities accountable? Once again, I thank you for being here, and with that, I yield to the ranking member for his opening statement.
We are tuned into the House hearing on confronting the scourge of anti-Semitism on campus. You just heard from Congressman Burgess Owens, the chairman of this subcommittee. But first up, we want to let you know about a recent development. Thousands are expected in Washington, D.C. today in a rally denouncing a rise in anti-Semitism and supporting the release of hostages.
The event is organized by the Jewish Federation of North America and the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations.
The National Park Service has granted a permit for 100,000 attendees, and the D.C. police have requested the assistance of the National Guard.
The event aims to provide a sense of community and unity after an increase in anti-Semitic incidents following the Hamas attacks in Israel. So now let's just get into our coverage of the hearing. Again, we heard from Subcommittee Chair Burgess Owens. He was talking about the persecution, the increase in anti-Semitic incidents on college campuses, referring back to the persecution of the Jews during the Holocaust in Nazi Germany.
Yes, he did cover a lot of the links there that we're seeing the alarm bells ringing because of what has happened in the past, not just in the Holocaust, but stretching far back, as many people know, through the history of the Jewish people.
That's right. Yeah, the persecution of the Jewish people goes back thousands of years. I mean, the ancestral land of the Jews is known as Judea, and Jewish people were kicked off that land by the Babylonians, by the Romans. They gave it the name of Palestina, about 2,000 years ago.
And of course, the Jewish people went back into Israel and created this state called Israel with the blessings of, or at the direction of, the UN after World War II and after the horrors of the Holocaust. So this is a state that has been sanctioned, has been allowed by the nations that were in the UN at the time.
That's right, yeah, created to offer safe harbor to, again, a persecuted people that just experienced the worst persecution, arguably in human history, the 1940s persecution of the Jews, where 6 million Jewish people were murdered en masse by the Nazis.
And Of course, there was an attack on Israel when Israel was formed, but the next biggest attack since then was the October 7th attack by Hamas. Israel is not commonly welcome by the other nations surrounding it, most of the other nations surrounding it in the Middle East, and it is a bastion of democracy within that area and of Judeo-Christian values. So that's one reason that it's an important nation and important to the U.S.
That's right. And on October 7th, it's like you can't remind it enough. In 9/11, they said, never forget. Well, they call October 7th Israel's 9/11. And on that day, 1,300 Israeli citizens, most of them citizens, were murdered by Hamas terrorists. These are men, women, and children. Children burnt alive, people beheaded.
And of course, there have been since then also deaths within Gaza, and we don't know the exact numbers because the terrorist organization ruling Gaza, Hamas, we just can't trust their numbers, but they do say 10,000. Otherwise, the Pentagon says at least thousands. Of course, we are going to head back into this hearing and hear more about it, but first, a break.
To a child, this is what conflict looks like. Children in Ukraine are caught in the crossfire of war, forced to flee their homes.
A steady stream of refugees has been coming across all day. It's bitterly cold.
Lacking clean water and sanitation, exposed to injury, hunger.
Exhausted and shell-shocked from what they've been through.
Every dollar you give can help bring a meal, a blanket, or simply hope to a child living in conflict. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. That's just 33 cents a day. We cannot forget the children in places like Syria, born in refugee camps, playing in refugee camps, thinking of the camps as home. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. Your gift can help children like Ara in Afghanistan, where nearly 20 years of conflict have forced the people into extreme poverty. Weakened and unable to hold herself up, Ara was brought to a Save the Children center where she was diagnosed and treated for severe malnutrition. Every dollar helps. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month, just 33 cents a day. And thanks to special government grants that are available now, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. And when you use your credit card, you'll receive this special Save the Children tote bag to show you won't forget the children who are living their lives in conflict. Every war is a war against children. Please, give now.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
We are tuned into the House hearing on confronting the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. It's hosted by the Committee on Higher Education and the Workforce, and the subcommittee is Higher Education and Workforce Development, chaired by Burgess Owens, the Republican from Utah. Basically what we've been seeing in the past few weeks since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel is a rise in anti-Semitic incidents around the world and, of course, on college campuses, where students have, in some cases, been locked inside the campus library, hiding from protesters outside, as Burgess Owens was just talking about. We've heard of one student arrested, actually, for threatening to kill Jewish men, women, and children, and it's just really quite shocking. A lot of people never thought this would happen on U.S. soil.
Yes, for sure, and even especially on college campuses, which are meant to be open-minded places for the development of ideas. Congressman Owens, just speaking there, we heard about what he described as the offices of diversity and inclusion. Ironically, he says engendering bigotry, especially in regards to the Jewish people and the state of Israel. So we hope to hear more about this. This was just the beginning, but we do know that Owens has been a strong supporter of the supporting Israel and the Jewish people. But let's tune into our hearing and see what else comes of this.
Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Chairman Owens, and thank you to our witnesses for your testimony today. It's been over a month since Hamas's terrorist attack on innocent civilians in Israel and the start of a brutal, ongoing war in Gaza. This conflict has directly devastated thousands of people, Israelis and Palestinians alike, and countless families and friends across the world and in the United States. Tragically, but not surprisingly, this conflict has also been marked by a rise in both anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidences on America's colleges and universities. And to be clear, this discrimination is nothing new. Any student of history knows that it did not start with the current war, foreign influences, or any new philosophy. Our colleagues would do well to recall this country's century-long history of racism and anti-Semitism. We can all agree that free speech is a constitutional right and bedrock of our democracy, and colleges and universities have been on the front lines of advancing that right for decades. But we should also be able to agree that schools have a responsibility to protect students' civil rights and safety. And if they don't want to agree to that, Title VI makes it clear that they have that responsibility. Under President Biden's direction, the Department of Education has recently provided additional guidance to colleges and universities on how to uphold their obligation under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and better address anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of discrimination on campus. And while the Biden administration has taken an active role in helping institutions protect students, regrettably, many of my colleagues have spent this Congress fueling divisive and baseless culture wars. Moreover, this week, Congress will consider a government funding bill that includes cuts for the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, the very agency charged with protecting students from discrimination. So today, I hope my Republican colleagues will denounce the culture wars that have distracted us from protecting our vulnerable students, and I hope we can all stand behind the Biden administration's critical work to ensure that every student and educator has access to a campus free from discrimination, harassment, and violence. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Pursuant to Committee Rules 8C, all members who wish to insert written statements into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word format by 5 p.m. 14 days after this hearing, which is November 28, 2023. Without objections, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days to allow such transactions and statements and materials referenced during this hearing to be submitted for the official hearing record. I will now turn to the introduction of our 4 distinguished witnesses. Our first witness is Rabbi Moshe Howard, who is Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union, which is located in New York City, New York. Our next witness is is Mr. Kenneth Marcus, who is the founder and chairman of Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under the Law, which is located in Washington, D.C. A third witness is Ms. Stacy Burdett, who is an independent consultant in anti-Semitism prevention and response and is located in Washington, D.C. And our final witness is Ms. Sahar Tartak, who's a student at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. I'd like to thank the witnesses for being here today and look forward to your testimony. Pursuant to community rules, I would ask that each of you limit your oral presentation to a 5-minute summary of your written statement. I'd also like to remind the witnesses to be aware of their responsibility to provide accurate information to the subcommittee. I'd like to first recognize Rabbi Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the subcommittee. My name is Rabbi Moshe Hauer. I have the privilege to serve as the Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union, which is the largest organization serving Orthodox Jews in the world. But I'm not standing here or sitting here today simply in that capacity. I work day to day together with colleagues across the Jewish community, all of us are engaged in our future, who are our students on campus. We have an organization that services our communities on campus, and we work side by side with other organizations such as Hillel and Chabad, serving Jewish students of all types on our campuses. And I hope in these remarks to be able to represent them and to present to you, in addition to the many specific stories, some of which the chairman mentioned and cited, and others which you will hear here today and will hear, unfortunately and sadly, in the future, to give you a bit of a sense of the bigger picture.
We are tuned in to the House hearing on confronting the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We do know that there has been an uptick across the nation in anti-Semitic events, but also especially on college campuses. According to a recent Quinnipiac poll, 32% of young people aged 18 to 35 support Israel's response to Hamas's attack on Israel, which is quite a significantly small amount, I would say. But we have seen various incidents, recent incidents in this uptick. Just on Friday, Columbia University suspended 2 student groups who were critical of Israel, and because they were using threatening rhetoric and intimidation, which we heard some of from the Congressman just now.
That's right. There was a professor at Cornell University who said he was exhilarated by the deadly and horrifying attack by Hamas terrorists on Israel on October 7th. There was a Jewish student also at Cornell University she was trying to walk to her car, and there were protesters in her face screaming at her, and they weren't blocking her, but they were making it extremely uncomfortable for her to walk to her car. She also has an Israeli flag on her coffee cup, and she turns it the other way to hide the flag on campus because she's afraid for her life. And this was the same girl whose family in Israel said they were more afraid for her than they are for themselves in a country that's being attacked by rockets on a daily basis.
Yes, incredible. And these student groups and various other people within college campuses also making large assertions of their anti-Israel sentiment. We saw earlier anti-Semitic messages projected onto a library at George Washington University. We know that Harvard University student groups have been blaming Israel for Hamas's terrorist attacks. So these events just keep going on and on. We do know that there's been a 400% uptick across the U.S.
Yeah, that's what the American Defamation League says. Basically, in the 2 weeks after October 7th, there's been a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. compared to the same period in the previous year. Also, there's a worldwide increase. It's not just in the US. You know, Austria saw a 300% increase, Brazil over 900, the Netherlands over 800%, and this is all according to the American Defamation League's a recent blog post that just came out yesterday.
And we just heard from Rabbi Moshe Hauer. He was speaking about his testimony covering, representing students across the nation, Jewish students across the nation. But I did find a quote from the rabbi earlier praising President Biden's interagency task force, which focuses on coordinating the federal government's work to combat anti-Semitism. He said that the Orthodox Jewish community, whose members, because of their visibility as Jews, have been so targeted, is grateful for the President Biden's latest action to deploy the full strength of the US government in its fight against anti-Semitism. Of course, that's just one of the actions. We do know the Biden administration has rolled out some more tools today in regards to that, but we'll get more into that as this hearing goes on.
And I just want to jump in to real quickly correct. I said American Defamation League is Anti-Defamation League. So let's jump back into the hearing. Oh, to the commercial break.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Did you know African elephants could become extinct in our lifetime? In fact, more than 90% are already gone. If we don't act now, they will disappear forever. But we can't do it alone, because when it comes to saving elephants, it's you plus IFAW, the International Fund for Animal Welfare. You plus IFAW together can help stop poaching, protect habitats, and save thousands of elephants. Call or go online right now to join ifaw.org and give $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. You can save elephants and the places they call home. Together, we can fund rangers to stop poachers in their tracks, protect the land elephants need to roam and survive, and provide loving care for those who have been orphaned so they can one day be released back into the wild. But the only way we can do this life-saving work is with you plus IFAW. So call or go online with your gift right now. With the monthly support of people just like you, elephants like Moses are alive and thriving today. It takes years of hard work from dedicated teams so orphaned elephants can learn the skills they need to survive in the wild. So please, call now or go online with your monthly gift. You can help provide the urgent care elephants need so this generation won't be the last. And when you use your credit card, you'll get this exclusive membership kit, including your very own IFAW t-shirt to show it's you plus IFAW standing together to help rescue and care for these majestic creatures. The danger for elephants is more urgent than ever before. That's why we need you. It's going to take all of us to help save elephants before they disappear forever. So please, call right away or go to joinifaw.org with your monthly gift. Because together, you plus IFAW can save lives.
I'm Steve Lance in Washington, D.C., and we are NTD News.
Welcome back. We are tuned in to the House hearing on confronting the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. It's a hot topic today. We do know the Biden administration has rolled out new tools today trying to combat anti-Semitism on campus, as well as Islamophobia, they say. But we are going to look a little at the Congressman who is the chairman of this subcommittee, Burgess Owens. He has done a lot of actions recently to support Israel and the Jewish people. He led a resolution condemning support for Iran-backed terrorist groups, Hamas and Hezbollah, as well as anti-Semitism in colleges and universities. That was recently voted on in the House with a vote of 369 to 23. So 22 Democrats and 1 Republican voted against it, but on the whole, it was largely voted for.
Yeah, and speaking of votes in Congress, the Congress voted to censure Rashida Tlaib for making comments in a video on X, where she said, "From the river to the sea," which is essentially the narrative of Hamas, the terrorist group that attacked Israel on October 7th. She was censured 234 to 188, and 22 Democrats supported it, and 4 Republicans opposed it. So that's really another tidbit about the backdrop of this hearing on anti-Semitism on college campuses. Let's tune back in.
Our organization, like others in the Jewish space, we place educators on Jewish campus, on university campuses. Educators who are there, who enter the field in order to be able to provide a home on campus for Jewish students, to help nurture their sense of community, their sense of identity, to have a place to come together to celebrate Jewish holidays and the Sabbath, to study, to eat together, to maintain their sense of community, of their faith community. Today, the entire community of Jews on campus do not need a home, they need a fortress. People who went into this field in order to be able to educate and to nurture, instead find themselves, despite their own trauma and their own fear, having to spend their time just caring for the trauma and the fear of their students. Day to day, instead of educating, they're protecting. They're counseling people, students, how to avoid danger, how to navigate a class where the professor, where the staff that's in the class is creating a hostile environment for the students. The notion of being able to be there, to build, to grow, where the campus is a nurturing environment for all of its students, is unfortunately not their reality. Once upon a time, Jews were not admitted to these campuses. Today, we've come a long way. Jews are admitted to every campus. But today, unlike a short time ago, that admission introduces them to an environment where they experience fear and hostility. Which is better, to not be allowed in or to be welcomed and then to be intimidated? Title VI, as you will hear from my friend and colleague, Ken Marcus, Title VI ensures that our environments, our federally funded environments, our university environments are supposed to provide a place where all students are welcome. And what we are experiencing today is a test case in non-compliance to Title VI. I would also like to make a last point, and that is to draw you back to the big picture of how the Jewish community, the students and the Jewish community as a whole, are experiencing this moment. We are the people of the book, and that book contains values and morals, and it tells us our story. We all know our story, and this is the story of the Jewish people in a nutshell. We've been around for a few thousand years. We come to a country where we live, where we wander to. We thrive there. We contribute to the community, and after a period of time, that country spits us out. That's been our story. We live with it, we know it, and we didn't think it was going to happen here. We believed that the United States of America, built as it is on the principles of liberty and freedom and civil rights, would never spit us out. We never imagined, not 5 years ago, not 1 year ago, that we would be sitting here in this committee room because of the kind of vile and terrible anti-Semitism which is being directed at us on campuses. It's in your hands. You are our elected officials. We've entrusted you to bring back the liberty and freedom to our land, to make our community believe again that America will be different.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Appreciate that. I would next recognize Mr. Marcus.
Chairman Owens, Ranking Member Scott, members of the subcommittee, it's an honor to be here today for this briefing. I thank you for holding it and for including me. I am the chairman of the Louis D. Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law. We speak every day with Jewish students who are facing anti-Semitism on college campuses. A month ago, shortly before the 7th of October, I would have told you that we were facing historic levels of campus anti-Semitism, worse than we had ever seen before. But that was nothing like what we've seen since then. During the weeks following October 7th, we had more than a tenfold increase in intake as compared to the historic levels that we've been seeing before that. And that was even before we announced a joint program with the Anti-Defamation League and Hillel to do intake together, at which point it skyrocketed above that. We have a crisis today on America's campuses. This is an emergency, and I would suggest to this committee that when the problem is exceptional and unprecedented, the solutions need to be unprecedented and exceptional.
We are tuned into the House hearing on the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. It's hosted by the Subcommittee on Higher Education and Workforce Development, chaired by Burgess Owens, Republican from Utah. It's about the rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses and what to do about it. We started our segment just now, continuing our testimony from Rabbi Moshe Hauer. He's the executive vice president of the Orthodox Union. It's the largest organization serving Orthodox Jews in the world. And he gave just a really emotional and poignant plea to Congress people. He talked about Jews on campuses not needing a home, but needing a fortress because of anti-Semitic incidents there. You know, I mentioned earlier students at one university locking themselves in a library to avoid harassment from a crowd outside, having to sneak out the back door. You know, he said at one point Jews were not admitted on some college campuses, but you know, he said, what's better? Being banned from a college campus or being welcomed to a college campus but being intimidated?
Yeah, he brought up a very poignant point as well about expulsion being part of the Jewish people's history and their story, but that he said they never ever believed that they would face that prospect here in the US, in the land of the free, calling on lawmakers to really put this libertarian and this sense of freedom first, and the protection of the Jewish people and religious rights and right to expression as well.
Yeah, he said it's in your hands to the Congress people. We also heard from Kenneth Marcus, Esquire. He's the founder and chairman of Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law. He said prior to October 7th, they saw historic levels of anti-Semitism in the US and on college campuses. But he said after October 7th, there was a tenfold increase. Right.
Yeah. And just coming back to the rabbi, he'll be speaking today at a rally on the National Mall, which is a march for Israel, the pro-Israel rally, which we'll be covering later today. But he really spoke about the faith community needing to nurture that community, but now also needing to counsel and comfort students who are facing such troubles on campus now.
Yeah, and Rabbi Hauer also spoke about the situation on Fox News, this anti-Semitic situation we're encountering in our country. And he said, you know, the Jewish people are peaceful people, and he said everything they do is for peace. You know, this principle of turn the other cheek is something that the Jewish people follow, he said. But he says what we're seeing here in Israel, the attack by Hamas on October 7th on Israel was not an instance where you turn the other cheek. You know, if I insult you, Steph, you know,
which you would never do.
I would never do it. But if you have that if you're following that principle, you don't let it get to you, and you figuratively turn the other cheek and just kind of let it go. But when somebody is attacking your people to eliminate the people that you belong to, the Jewish people, like Hamas, he's saying that's not an instance where you turn the other cheek, and he feels that the Jewish people are right to seek to destroy Hamas. So we'll have more on this hearing on countering anti-Semitism on college campuses after the break.
If you're watching this, I didn't make it. Thanks to people like you and the American Heart Association, my family never had to see this video. I was a healthy 47-year-old, no symptoms, but then my doctor discovered I had a bad heart valve that was beyond repair. The scariest day of my life was when I was sitting on a gurney as I looked and my wife was at my side and my kids had me surrounded. Deep down, this could be it. This could be all there is.
Not having him around for Riley to grow up with and have that papa figure in his life, that would have been hard.
This little heart valve did something really big. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without it. The research for this heart valve was funded by the American Heart Association. And that's why I'm asking you to become a monthly donor for just $19 a month. When you do, you'll help fund the next medical breakthrough that could save your life or the life of someone you love. You'll also provide life-saving CPR training and help certify hospitals to give the best care to those who have had a heart attack or stroke. When you give $19 a month, we'll send you a t-shirt just like this one. From the moment you put it on, you'll help raise awareness for heart disease and stroke. Since my surgery, I had a son get married. I had a daughter graduate high school. I had another daughter give birth to a precious boy. I would have missed all that. And that's why it's personal for me.
We're very thankful for everyone who is a donor because it gives us more time.
Every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. The next person you help save could be someone you love or even you. Become a monthly donor today by calling or going to helpheart.org because it's personal.
Hi everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Welcome back. We are tuning in to a House hearing on confronting the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. That's the title of the hearing. We've heard from Rabbi Moshe Hauer, Vice President of the largest organization serving Orthodox Jews. We also heard from Kenneth Marcus, founder and chairman of the Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law. Today is also the day of a march for Israel down in D.C. It's denouncing the rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S. and around the world.
And today is also the day that the Biden administration is rolling out new tools to try to address the rising anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on college campuses. Some of those new tools we will get into a little later, but another recent action just over the weekend, a Harvard alumni group threatening to withdraw funding for what they call anti-Semitism happening on campus, and if that's not addressed, they say they'll withdraw their funding. So there's a lot happening right here, and very, very up to the minute. Things are developing, and we'll let you know more about that rally later in our broadcast. But first, let's head back into the hearing.
My testimony describes some of what's happening on college campuses, but the chairman's opening remarks reflects an understanding of that. Students are being assaulted. Students are being threatened. There is vandalism. There's harassment of all sorts, not just on a few hotspot campuses, but all over this country, including at institutions that we had previously considered to be entirely safe for Jewish students. Let me suggest, if I may, a few answers, because there are things that can be done, especially under the statute that Rabbi Howard mentioned, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Biden administration has addressed anti-Semitism in various ways, and I think should be praised for issuing a national strategy on anti-Semitism. The Office for Civil Rights, or OCR, which I formerly headed at the U.S. Department of Education, has issued Dear Colleague letters and has had various meetings and public events, which I think are helpful. But much of that was what I would call October 6th thinking. We are now in an emergency. Here are a few things that should be done, certainly within the next 30 days. Number one, the Secretary of Education has authority to institute compliance reviews. When I served in the George W. Bush and Trump administrations, when there was a matter of national importance that we wanted to address and bring public attention to, we would establish a nationwide initiative with investigations proactively addressed through all of the regions of the agency. That would put significant resources, but also raise public attention. There is no need to simply wait for complaints to come in. The agency can reach out. Second, even short of compliance initiative, the agency has the power to institute self-directed investigations. Jewish communal organizations like mine are thinly stretched. We are providing complaints where we can, as fast as we can, but the U.S. Department of Education has the authority anytime it opens the newspaper or watches the news to investigate in those cases, of which there are many, in which it is apparent that there are issues of noncompliance with federal law. Third, Executive Order 13899 on combating anti-Semitism. The Biden administration has committed over and over again to issue regulations implementing President Trump's former executive order on combating anti-Semitism, which remains active policy, but lacks the durability of a regulation. This has been delayed and delayed again. It is now due next month in December. It would be unfortunate at a period of extreme anti-Semitism for this to be delayed again, and yet there's been no mention of it in either the national strategy or the most recent OCR report to this Congress and the President. At a minimum, the administration should do what it has promised and what it had promised long before October 7 and issue the notice of proposed rulemaking regarding Executive Order 13899. Fourth, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. That's up to this Congress, not the executive branch. But there is legislation that has been introduced that would formalize and codify the executive order established by the last president, President Donald Trump. This would provide tools needed by OCR in order to ensure that there will be consistent standard use of the understanding of anti-Semitism. Those are four things, but in general what we need is not just good words, not just an occasional letter, but a combination of strong guidance and, most importantly, proactive action. There is no need to simply wait for complaints to come in. The federal government should take action, and there's no reason why it cannot do so within these next 30 days. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. I will now recognize Ms. Burdett.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman Owens and Ranking Member Scott, for this opportunity. Anti-Semitism isn't just a threat to Jews, it's a threat to democratic norms and American values. Its presence has always been a warning sign about the health of free democratic societies. All the members here have noted that what we're seeing isn't new. It follows the core logic of anti-Semitism throughout history. It's a lie to blame Jews for what's wrong in the world. You've also recognized anti-Semitism is a feature, not a bug, of American society and history. The demand for a better life for Palestinians is a worthy cause, but attacks on Jewish students have nothing to do with criticism of Israel's policy or actions. They don't serve Palestinian freedom or advance any peaceful future for Israelis and Palestinians. Here's what some of the most responsive universities I've seen have in common. Number one, they get that this isn't business as usual. We've heard from the other panelists, October 6th was a different world. They've been communicating steadily and repeatedly with students and faculty to remind them anti-Semitism violates, first of all, the university's values. There are rules, there are parameters around protests. They've increased security, services like escorts and hotlines to report threats. Some have formed anti-Semitism task forces to look system-wide at policies and even their academic offerings. We hear the call from communities, where are my allies? Jews need support, we need solidarity, and we need recognition that anti-Semitism is serious.
We're tuned in to the House hearing on combating the scourge of anti-Semitism on college campuses. You just heard from Ms. Stacey Burdett, independent consultant in anti-Semitism prevention and response. And just before her was Mr. Kenneth L. Marcus, Esquire, the founder and chairman of the Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law. He spoke about this distinction between the actions of the Biden administration being what he described as October 6th thinking. And he suggested a new way of thinking, new strategies, outlining 4 or 5 actions that he thinks should be taken. We'll get into those. But we also are looking at the Biden administration's actions right now. What are they doing? Today they outlined new tools that they were rolling out to try to combat anti-Semitism on campus. We've already mentioned those. Some of those include guides for combating anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on campus. Also listening groups for educators and student groups from K through to college level. And this national strategy that we heard about earlier, that's all part of the national strategy.
Right, and Marcus was saying that, this, again, even all of that was part of this October 6th thinking before the Hamas attack. And like you were saying, he's calling for something more, and what he's talking about, not just waiting for complaints of anti-Semitism to come in to organizations set up to deal with this, especially the federal government, but actually going out and proactively looking for incidents and really just implementing what he called compliance reviews, not looking for incidents. But yeah, taking a more proactive approach to addressing this.
And he spoke a lot about the executive tools used that the previous administration, the Trump administration, had used to combat anti-Semitism, taking on the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism as the federal government's standard for combating hate towards Jews. And that definition states that it involves a certain perception of Jews expressed as hatred towards Jews with manifestations directed towards individuals, their property, Jewish community institutions, and religious facilities. And he was really saying that making this more formal and not just an executive order will help to combat anti-Semitism in all of its forms.
Right, and what is that anti-Semitism? What does it look like? How is it playing out? Well, we were hoping to hear from Sahar Tartak, student at Yale. It looks like we won't have time for that because we'll be heading into the news shortly. But she was saying she actually received threatening messages from her peers about her being Jewish. She said peers threatened her on online platforms. And also the editors of Yale's school newspaper censored her pro-Israel column. And that goes back to the incident I was talking before about the other woman at Cornell University who was harassed on their way to her car. I mean, there were those students that were locked themselves in a library to avoid being harassed by a mob.
Right. Also at Cornell, where and there was an online discussion forum where Jews were called the excrement on the face of the earth, and they were threatened with rape and beheading and bombarded with demands such as eliminate Jewish living from Cornell campus. Somebody was actually arrested, has been charged with posting violent threats. He was a 21-year-old junior. But these incidents are not just located in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 college campuses. As we heard from the witnesses just earlier, it can be found at many levels across the school system.
That's right, and we talked before about the 400% increase of anti-Semitic incidents here in the U.S., but also worldwide. Austria has seen a 300% increase in anti-Semitic incidents, Brazil over 900, Netherlands 800% increase. So this is a global problem. Also there was that airport in Russia where a plane from Israel landed and a mob stormed the airport reportedly looking for Jewish people.
Yeah, there's been actually just too many incidents, and we could go on about that. I do want to point out that Cornell student was not necessarily arrested, but has been charged. So we're going to head into the news. We do hope you stay tuned for all of our recent updates for the latest of what's happening around the U.S. and the world.
Art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shin-Yun. Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Stay tuned to get this 5-piece bakeware set, a $60 value, absolutely free. Tired of that pan that always sticks? It's so scratched and worn, you can't cook in it.
Hi, Chef Daniel Green here with my new hammered pans from Gotham Steel. This complete 9-piece set is guaranteed to beautify your kitchen like never before.
Gosh, what I love most about this design is this hammered copper look. It would just look so fantastic hanging in my kitchen.
Wow, this is a beautiful pan. It looks great. Look at those eggs dancing around in there. I tell you, I'm sold. Where do I get these? I love them.
Hammered pans are ultra non-stick. Nothing sticks. Even gooey mac and cheese slips out with ease. And look, these sticky candies melted with a torch are no match for hammered pans. Plus, they're super durable, so use metal beaters straight in the pan for a gourmet souffle that slips out and a pan that looks just like new. They're even oven safe up to 500 degrees. So bake homemade chicken pot pie, cheesy lasagna, or this whole chicken dinner. Any recipe looks great in these pans. From steak flambe to delicious desserts and delicate fish, nothing sticks. Plus, the entire set is dishwasher safe and PFOA free.
Similar sets are over $1,000, but you won't pay that. Not $500 or even $300. Get the full 9-piece Gotham Steel hammered set for just 5 payments of $49.99, and we'll even ship it to you free. But order now and we'll drop 1 payment. That's just 4 payments of $49.99, and we'll even guarantee it for a full 10 years. Plus, we'll include this free steamer and strainer, and our 5-piece bakeware set with every pan you'll ever need to make delicious breads, cakes, and desserts. Together, these are an $80 value, yours 100% free. That's a huge 15-piece set with free shipping. Call or click now.
To order, call 1-800-445-7218 or go to buyhammered.com. That's 1-800-445-7218, or you can order online at buyhammered.com.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
I'm Tiffany Meyer in New York City, and we are NTD News.
Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are our top stories.
Thousands of demonstrators heading to the nation's capital in a show of support for Israel. The rally comes as the war with Hamas enters its sixth week. Hear what the organizer has to say.
The United Auto Workers planning to organize even more aggressively, and this time the union has its eyes on the non-union auto plants owned by foreign companies.
Should U.S. bank regulators hike bank capital requirements? Top bank regulators testify before Congress as they face increasing pressure from lawmakers.
Using the government to take on political enemies, reports say that's former President Trump's plan if he gets back in the White House. Find out how Trump's campaign responded to the rumors.
A record-setting Thanksgiving for air travel. U.S. Airlines expects some 30 million passengers for this holiday season. Find out the peak travel days.
A CEO resigns after controversial Israel tweets. One of the world's largest tech events in the world now has a new boss. Find out what she says about the controversy and what the previous CEO said about Israel.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
Hello and welcome to NTD News Today.
We have insights and perspectives on the stories shaping our world.
Breaking news, in-depth analysis, and inspiration to power your day. Now for our top stories.
The U.S. is imposing a third round of sanctions on Hamas and its allies. The new sanctions target the terror group's leaders and financiers.
A Lebanon-based money exchange is also sanctioned, along with its owner and founder. The U.S. accused the company of transferring tens of millions of dollars to Hamas.
The sanctions freeze all U.S. assets and generally bar Americans from doing business with them.
Hamas is a U.S. and EU designated terror organization. Israel has vowed to wipe out the group following its October 7th rampage that left around 1,200 people dead. And thousands are expected in Washington, D.C. today in a rally denouncing a rise in anti-Semitism and supporting the release of hostages. The event is organized by the Jewish Federation of North America and the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations.
The National Park Service has granted a permit for 100,000 attendees. And the D.C. police have requested the assistance of the National Guard. The event aims to provide a sense of community and unity after an increase in anti-Semitic incidents following the Hamas attack in Israel.
We're going to demonstrate to the leadership of this country, to the Congress, and to the President. We're going to thank them for their support of Israel. A poll released today shows 83% of Americans support Israel's right to respond to this atrocity by Hamas, and we're going to call on them to continue those policies. We will stand on the National Mall in the most visible place in this country and say America will not stand for this and our community will not stand for this.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is warning that Hamas doesn't just pose a threat to the Middle East. He told Fox News' Sean Hannity that the terror group is also a danger to Europe and the U.S.
If we don't win now, then Europe is next and you're next. And we have to win. We have to win. There is no substitute for total victory.
Netanyahu framed the war with Hamas as a battle between civilization and barbarism. He said Israel has to win for their own sake and for the people of Gaza. He said Hamas has brought them bloodshed, poverty, and misery.
The Israeli leader also warned the world of other dangerous actors, including Hezbollah and Houthi rebels in Yemen.
The Biden administration is rolling out new tools to address anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in schools. It includes guides for preventing acts of hate, listening sessions with educators, and it builds on recent actions by the White House, including assisting with law enforcement on college campuses, as we heard earlier. Earlier today, I spoke with Roger Simon, the author of American Refugees, which is out January 10th. He's also the director of the Epic Times NTD Collab, The Presidential Roller Coaster 2024 on APEC TV. Roger Simon, thank you so much for joining us today. To begin with, in light of the Biden administration's recent actions introducing new tools to combat anti-Semitism, and they also say Islamophobia in schools, what do you think of their effectiveness in terms of battling anti-Semitism across the nation?
Hard to say, but I don't think they'll be great because a wave has already occurred. It's not a simple thing at all to deal with because a war is going on, and I don't know. I feel very badly for all the Jewish kids going to college now. I mean, really badly, because it's not a happy experience for them. You know, the Israeli government is in a trap because if they don't finish off Hamas, Hamas will come back. In fact, Hamas has said they would come back. They've made it very clear. So they have to finish them off, but as they finish them off, everything looks uglier and uglier, and anti-Semitism is fanned globally, particularly on campus.
And so what more do you think the Biden administration could do at this time to combat anti-Semitism, especially on campus?
Shut up about lies such as, oh, Islamophobia is a problem. Islamophobia is not a problem. In fact, it's a made-up word. It doesn't even exist. It's because a phobia is a false fear, and there is no false fear here. So it's like it's nonsense, and it's vote. It has to do with votes, Muslim votes, not reality.
There do seem to be hate crimes against Palestinians in this nation as well. What do you say to that?
Oh, all hate crimes are awful. They're terrible. But you know, statistically, over the last few years, the hate crimes against Jews are vastly greater. And that is not admitted by any of these people. All of a sudden they go and they point to Islamophobia before, almost automatically, as our press secretary did. It was like, it's just kind of a neurosis.
And looking particularly at college campuses, we do see that a group of 1,600 Harvard alumni have threatened to withdraw their funding or stop their funding if this issue of anti-Semitism isn't dealt with on campus. Do you think these kinds of actions could have a large effect, or what do you think could have a large effect?
Not great, largely symbolic. Unfortunately, Harvard in particular, and all the Ivy League schools, are so rich, in some cases richer than in many countries in Africa. This is sort of a drop in the bucket. And they're also being financed by the U.S. government and China and various to such extremes that, you know, it's great that those alumni are doing that.
And zooming out a little to pro-Israel efforts here, we're seeing today a March for Israel on the National Mall. How effective do you think that will be? What kind of message could it send, and how important are things like actions like this?
They signal that we are here. Unfortunately, the marches on the other side seem to be bigger and more worldwide. So it's a little bit frightening to me. But you know, it signals that we are here and we're marching, and that's good. But the reality is something is very bad is brewing, and it has to be stopped. I mean, what's very remarkable in the whole thing is that the anti-Semitism now is quite public, whereas during the Nazi period, the Wannsee Conference that created the final solution with Heydrich and all those people took place in secret in January 1942. The Nazis did not want to admit how bad they were. People today don't seem to care. That's blood-curdling.
Indeed. Roger Simon, great to speak with you on this important topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The United Auto Workers, or UAW, union is planning to aggressively organize non-union auto plants.
This comes after winning new contracts with the Detroit 3 automakers.
Last month, the UAW won new contracts with General Motors, Ford Motor, and Chrysler parent Stellantis. They secured a 25% wage rise through 2028 and other benefits.
Then on Monday, Korean automaker Hyundai said it will hike wages for non-union U.S. production workers also by 25% by 2028. Japanese automakers Toyota and Honda have already done the same after the UAW deal.
The UAW for decades has unsuccessfully sought to organize auto factories operated by foreign automakers.
But UAW President Shawn Fain said the following during a testimony to a Senate committee today.
The non-union companies are doing this because they're scared. They're scared that their workers see a better life. And the companies trying to head that off. You know, they've used fear, uncertainty, and division to try to break the unions. And I promise you here, those days are over.
The Federal Reserve Bank's regulators are defending plans to hike bank capital requirements. They are testifying before Congress as they come under increasing pressure from many lawmakers to rein in their efforts.
However, some banks have recorded sizable declines in the fair value of assets as interest rates have increased, putting pressure on tangible capital. These banks are actively managing the resulting set of risks, but these could take some time to address. Additionally, some banks that have high reliance on uninsured deposits are using more expensive funding sources to manage their liquidity. Looking forward, preserving a sound and resilient banking system requires continued attention to address identified vulnerabilities and vigilance to changing conditions.
It will be the first official's first appearance on Capitol Hill since proposing the Basel III Endgame rules in July. The proposal would overhaul how banks gauge risk and, in turn, how much capital they must hold against potential losses.
Regulators say stronger cash cushions will make the financial system safer and are especially crucial after 3 banks failed earlier this year. But lenders have attacked the proposal, saying it will hurt lending and the broader U.S. economy.
As part of their campaign to kill the Basel proposal, banks have been lobbying lawmakers to put pressure on the regulators. On Monday, 39 Senate Republicans asked the regulators to scrap the proposal, citing economic harm.
Michael Barr, vice chair for the supervision at the Federal Reserve, defended the proposal in front of the Senate Banking Committee today. The Senate is considering a rule change to confirm military promotions. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Rules Committee will mark up a resolution today to confirm over 350 military promotions. This would break the hold that Senator Tommy Tuberville has maintained for 9 months in protest to the Pentagon's abortion policy. Schumer said he will bring the resolution to the Senate floor for a vote as soon as possible. However, it's unclear if there is enough Republican support to pass the measure.
If it does pass, Senate procedure for confirming non-political military promotions would change for the rest of the 118th Congress, which ends in January 2025.
Senator Tuberville has been holding up confirmations over a Pentagon policy that pays for abortion-related travel for service members. And former President Trump is pushing back against rumors about what he'd do in a second term. Reports say that he'd crack down on illegal immigration, take on political enemies, and more. Top Trump campaign advisors are responding, writing these reports about personnel and policies that are specific to a second Trump administration are purely speculative and theoretical.
This comes after the Washington Post and the New York Times published Trump's alleged plans for a possible second term, such as cracking down on illegal immigration, installing lawyers who support his agenda, and using the government to go after political enemies.
The last point is something Trump and his supporters have been accusing Democrats of doing, using the government and the justice system to go after him. And a win for the former president in Michigan. Trump made it on the 2024 primary ballot, at least for now.
Michigan's Democratic Secretary of State released the list of candidates on the ballot yesterday. However, Trump's name could still be taken off in the future.
That's because lawsuits against him are still ongoing in Michigan, citing the 14th Amendment. It prohibits someone from running for federal office if the person engaged in insurrections or rebellions while in office.
The state secretary said state law required her to release an initial list of candidates by 4 p.m. Monday afternoon.
Former President Trump's social media platform Truth Social is losing millions of dollars. It's now merging with Digital World Acquisition Corporate. Trump Media and Technology Group, which owns the platform, announced a new milestone in the merger. The companies on Monday announced that they filed a crucial document. The Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, previously delayed the merger. Trump's company now filed documents showing Truth Social is not profitable, losing millions of dollars. They argue that it will be hard for them to raise more money, and that's why they need to merge. Trump Media calls the filing a monumental milestone, adding that the company looks forward to working with the SEC to bring the deal to a close as quickly as possible. And up next, children face a new health hazard from colorful beads. A New Jersey congressman introduces legislation to ban the toys from being marketed towards kids.
And a new inflation report out today. The number came in cooler. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and this is my story. I was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, or brittle bone disease. I have broken my bones almost 200 times, and I have had 11 surgeries. But I didn't let that stop me. I love to bike ride, climb, race, and I'm learning how to stand and walk. But I can only do all of this because of generous people like you and Shriners Hospitals for Children.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children has helped more than 1.3 million kids just like me, regardless of their family's ability to pay.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is only able to provide this world-class, life-changing medical care because of the generous gifts of people just like you.
Because of you, I can ride my bike. I can play basketball.
Because of people like you, I can run.
I can smile.
Will you send your love to the rescue today?
When you go to loveshriners.org right now and give just 63 cents a day, you're helping kids just like me.
Like me. Like me.
When you give today, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of the love you gave to a kid just like me.
Your gift, no matter how small, can help a child today.
This is your moment to make a difference.
When you pick up your phone, you know you have it right there, and call to give. You're helping kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org.
Your gift makes a difference. Thank you for giving.
Are you ready to help your family get prepared for the unexpected?
Everyone in? Here we go!
Ladybug and Cat Noir know how important it is to be ready. Because you never know when Hawkmoth is going to strike, or a disaster will hit. And you don't need miraculous powers. Just put those planning skills you already have to good use. Know who to call, decide on a safe meeting location, and create an emergency preparedness kit. Make a plan that will help you and your family be ready when emergencies happen. Ready Kids can help.
I'm coming to save you!
Get started at ready.gov/kids.
Welcome back. A New Jersey congressman has introduced legislation to ban water beads marketed as toys for children.
The lawmaker warns that the colorful water-absorbing balls can be deadly.
And you can see why children are attracted to them. They have these kits, all different kinds of things where you can buy them online or in the store, and children are attracted to them.
Representative Frank Pallone Jr. is sounding the alarm on the potential hazard. Water beads come in a variety of colors, and bright colors can look like anything from candy to young children.
When dry, water beads can be the size of a pinhead, but they can grow much larger when they come into contact with water.
The danger is that the beads can absorb bodily fluids if swallowed. According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, they can cause internal injuries and even death.
In September, the agency issued a recall for tens of thousands of water bead activity kits. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is warning doctors to watch out for lead poisoning in children. At least 22 toddlers age 1 to 3 got sick after eating tainted pouches of applesauce. The illnesses are part of an outbreak tied to brands Wanabana and Apple Cinnamon Fruit Puree and Schnucks and Weiss Cinnamon Applesauce pouches. The CDC said at least one child's blood showed lead levels 8 times beyond the level that raises concern. There's no safe level of lead exposure. Symptoms include headache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, changes in activity level, and anemia. But kids may show no signs of exposure at all. Children suspected of eating the lead-tainted applesauce should be tested. Lead exposure can lead to severe learning and behavioral problems. The CDC said there were cases linked to the applesauce in 14 states. New inflation data for the month of October just released this morning by the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Joining us now to discuss the numbers is NTD business host Don Ma. Don, how do the new figures look?
All right, let me just give you real quickly the big numbers in this report today. So month over month, the consumer price index is very little changed. Came in at 0.4% in October compared to the month before. And the headline number is where we're getting a cooler report, and that came in at 3.2% year over year. And last month, the year-over-year comparison was at 3.7%, so that's down a bit from last month, which was welcome news, of course. And let's just quickly talk about core CPI. So the core consumer price index excludes food and energy, which the Fed considers volatile, and that came in 4.0%, which is also a bit lower compared to the month before. And what contributed to this cooler number was actually a drop in gasoline prices, and we know that fuels into the CPI, so it's no surprise that it came down a little bit.
And what's the sentiment surrounding these new numbers, Don?
Yeah, so I mentioned it's a bit cooler, right? It came in a bit lower year over year on the headline side. So, you know, this is welcome news for a lot of people. That's including economists, investors as well. And this really increases the confidence among many that the Federal Reserve is done increasing interest rates, because of course the Fed is looking for inflation to come down to 2%. And this cooling, this new number, perhaps is good news for the Fed. So many investors, economists, analysts, are a bit more confident after this report, seeing that inflation has cooled on the headline side.
And Don, what's the latest news in the business world?
All right, so other than that, it seems like small businesses' sentiment fell for a third consecutive month in October, and this is according to a National Federation of Independent Business survey. It shows that sentiment is below its 50-year average for nearly 2 years now as of October. Some small businesses reported reduced profits, citing weakening sales, higher input costs. And economist with the National Federation of Independent Business says that owners are actually not optimistic about better business conditions. He says small business owners are not growing their inventories. This is as labor and energy costs are not coming down. So this is making it a bit of a gloomy outlook for the remainder of the year. And other than that, the U.S. plans to buy 1.2 million barrels of oil to help replenish the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Of course, this is after it sold off the largest amount ever last year. This is according to a Monday's statement from the Energy Department. And the department said the planned purchase for the oil is at an average price of around $77 per barrel. Last month, the Energy Department also said it hopes to buy 3 million barrels for December delivery and another 3 million for January. And finally, Thanksgiving right around the corner, so turkey prices, let's talk about that. It's down this year, but it seems like some of the side dishes are going to cost you more. So here's some tips that I have to potentially help you save a little bit. So first, you gotta create a budget. Shop early and shop in bulk. Start looking for those deals now, and when you do go shopping, consider cutting out some of the dishes that maybe aren't that popular at the table. For me personally, it's cranberry sauce. I know a lot of people like that, but this is just a personal preference here. Another thing you can do is go potluck. Experts recommend you ask guests to bring the desserts or sides. That way you can split the cost, right? And that way, your mother-in-law will finally stop complaining about your mashed potatoes. It's going to be somebody else's fault this year. It's a little bit more work, but it's going to help you avoid high price markups.
And Don, I just have to ask before you go, what do you have against cranberry sauce?
I don't have anything against cranberry sauce in particular. Different people have different tastes, and I think, personally for me, I prefer something else.
All right, fair enough.
Good to know. Thank you, Don. U.S. Airlines are predicting a record Thanksgiving travel season.
A group representing the industry has forecasted around 30 million people will fly over for the holiday.
That would be an all-time high and up 9% from last year. It would also be 1.7 million above the pre-pandemic record.
Airlines for America represents United, Delta, and other big names. It says November 26 will be a record-setting day with 3.2 million travelers expected.
The Transportation Safety Administration is expecting similar numbers over the holiday season. All the forecasts come despite cuts in services to New York airports due to air traffic control staffing issues.
Looking beyond Thanksgiving, some now see travel to Asia-Pacific destinations as the next boom market. Delta says it plans to increase capacity to the region by up to 50% over the December quarter.
And coming up, Germany now says it won't reach a set goal regarding support for Ukraine. Find out what the country is planning to do next.
And a tech company now in trouble for not saving data from private citizens. We bring you the latest update on the Russia-Google feud when we return.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history. Inspired by the divine. Experience Shingyun.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest Christmas sale ever. You get our brand new 6-piece My Towels for only $29.98, or rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper as low as $99.99. Or how about MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98? There's something for everyone. Duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more. Well, I know MyPillow products make for the perfect Christmas gifts, so I'm going to extend my money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2024. So go to MyPillow.com now or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you get our 6-piece towels for only $29.98. Or get your very own MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98. It's our biggest Christmas sale ever. Get all your shopping done now while quantities last.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
Does this look familiar? You probably think this is what owning hearing aids would be like. Let me tell you, there's a better way. The Atom by Audien Hearing. The all-new Audien Atom is the world's first wireless charging hearing aid under $100. The Atom comes with an easy-to-use wireless charging dock. Plus, the Atom has a 22% smaller design, so it's nearly invisible when worn in the ear. That's why we have over 250,000 happy customers. Each pair has a 45-day money-back guarantee, so there is zero risk in trying them.
Call 1-800-918-3109. That's 1-800-918-3109. Call 1-800-918-3109 or go to audienhearing.com to get your pair of Audien Atom hearing aids for only $99.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
I'm David Lamb in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we are NTD News.
Back to the news. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warning that China's slowing economy could hurt other countries. But her stance on whether the U.S. should decouple from China is drawing criticism from some Republicans.
NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from the APEC summit in San Francisco.
During a press conference here in the APEC summit in San Francisco, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that during her meetings with Chinese officials, they talked about a slowdown in the Chinese economy.
That it presents a downside risk to the economic outlook that could affect probably not so much the United States, but many APEC economies that have deep trade relations.
And while the U.S. is seeking to strengthen its supply chain security by moving its supply chain away from mainland China, Yellen says the U.S. is not trying to decouple from China economically. But the chairman of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, Mike Gallagher, told me over the weekend that the U.S. should decouple from China strategically. Watch.
I think we have to decouple in key areas. When we decided to shift from most favored nation status to permanent normal trade relations status and then WTO accession, we abandoned the human rights agenda with China. Completely abandoned it, right? It's this resurrection of an idea we thought was dead, whereby we can engage with China economically, diplomatically, and hope that they become a responsible stakeholder in the international system. That's failed for over 20 years. It's going to fail again if we go back to that.
Meanwhile, as President Biden is set to meet with the head of the Chinese Communist Party here in San Francisco on Wednesday, massive protests are being planned as some Chinese dissidents and victims of the Chinese Communist Party's persecution are coming out to protest Xi's presence here. They say that Xi should not be welcomed here as he's the culprit of China's many human rights abuses. Reporting from San Francisco, Iris Tao, NTD News.
At a major meeting at a major summit, President Biden and Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping are scheduled to meet in San Francisco at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, or APEC, as Iris was just telling us about. We speak with the publisher of the Journal of Political Risk, Anders Corr, for analysis of this highly anticipated and already controversial event. Anders Corr, thank you for joining us again. To begin with, what is the APEC summit and why should people care about it?
Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation is a long-standing international organization that involves a bunch of Asian countries, the United States, some other countries, get together and talk about cooperating economically. It's a major event because a lot of heads of states will be there. President Biden will be there. Xi Jinping will be there. On the sidelines, the two of them are planning to meet, which is a pretty big deal. It's, I would say, the highlight of the summit this year.
Yeah, that's right. The big news is that these two are going to meet. What's at stake for China in this meeting?
China wants to increase its economic access to U.S. markets. They want to bring tariffs down. They're going to be looking to increase their sales of solar, electric vehicles. They want to protect the access of their social media companies like TikTok, their internet sales companies like Temu and Shein. So there's a whole bunch on the table for them in terms of economically, militarily, diplomatically. There are also major issues like the Ukraine war, Israel war. All of this will be on the table for discussion.
What about the U.S.?
The United States is looking at, they're definitely looking at increased access, market access for our U.S. corporations into China, which is a historically closed market. We're also looking, I think, at fentanyl as an issue. About 73,000 Americans die every year from fentanyl overdose, and that will be a big issue. It's definitely a big issue for the American public, and it should be a big issue that President Biden will push in the summit.
Now, what's the significance of this meeting, given, like you mentioned, the icy relations between the U.S. and China, with Taiwan, Israel, Ukraine, and so many other issues?
It's significant. What they're hoping, I think, in terms of the U.S. side, is that there will be a thaw in relations. It's just been so difficult with China. Xi Jinping is really pushing on all fronts to expand his power and control, both internally within China, but also externally in terms of the recent takeover of Hong Kong, the threatened invasion of Taiwan. They've even, state media in China has even talked about invading Philippines or Australia. There's just so many issues that are very, very difficult between the U.S. and China that the U.S. is hoping for some kind of a thaw in relations.
Right, and Taiwan is looking to secure a one-on-one with President Biden at the summit. What would be the significance of Biden meeting with both the leader of China and leaders from Taiwan at this summit?
Such a meeting between President Biden and leaders from Taiwan would be sort of a tacit recognition of Taiwan's statehood. It wouldn't be stated so bluntly, but China would see it as some kind of a state recognition that they don't like to see these sorts of heads of state visits or even high-level visits between Taiwan and other countries. So it would would make it difficult for U.S.-China relations, but on the other hand, it would be I would think it would be an excellent move in terms of U.S.-Taiwan relations and the U.S. just standing up for its principles of democracy and human rights.
All right, Anders Kaur, thank you again.
Thank you.
And now we have the top stories from the UK, Russia, Ukraine, and other countries in Europe. Starting with news from Germany, the country's defense minister predicts an increase in Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure during the winter. He says it's vital to strengthen the air defenses and safeguard critical facilities.
This comes as Germany won't reach the goal of supplying Ukraine with 1 million rounds of ammunition. The minister made the announcement today, saying EU members are working together with the industry to ramp up production.
The question of whether 1 million was ever realistic is actually the right one. There have been voices that have said to be careful because 1 million is easy to decide and the money is there, but the production has to be there. Unfortunately, these voices are right.
Meanwhile, Germany's neighbor, the Netherlands, says Europe must keep supporting Ukraine. The Dutch defense minister says allies can't afford any fatigue regarding the war.
She also says the Dutch government hopes Ukrainian pilots can start learning to operate F-16 fighter jets as soon as possible. The U.S. in August approved sending F-16s to Ukraine from Denmark and the Netherlands as soon as pilot training is completed.
Today is the official opening of this European F-16 training center here in Romania. The Netherlands and Denmark have taken the lead in providing the training to Ukrainian pilots. We have enlarged the coalition with many other countries, also countries doing initial training for pilots. So as soon as possible, we hope also to welcome here Ukrainian pilots and crews.
European Union lawmakers on Tuesday amended a proposed law to fight online child pornography. The legislation attempts to balance the need to protect children and the right to privacy.
Internet providers would be compelled to assess the risk of online child sexual abuse on their web services. But lawmakers also want to avoid generalized monitoring of the internet.
There were 23,000 reports of online child sexual abuse in the EU in 2010. More than 1 million cases were reported in 2020.
A similar increase has been seen worldwide. Reports of child abuse on the internet rose from 1 million in 2014 to almost 22 million in 2020. Over 65 million images and videos of child sex abuse were identified.
Hungary is set to use nuclear reactors built by Russian companies. Hungary's foreign minister says the nuclear plant should be ready to connect to the country's electricity grid by the start of the next decade.
He also says the plant will reduce Hungary's carbon dioxide emissions by millions of tons.
Thanks to this nuclear investment, Hungary will remain among those 20 countries which are able to increase their economy by decreasing harmful emissions at the same time.
Meanwhile, in Russia, a court today is fining Google again. A Moscow court said it's for Google's repeated refusal to store Russian users' data on servers inside Russia. The court is fining Google over $160,000.
In August, a Russian court imposed a $30,000 fine on Google. That was for failing to delete allegedly false information about the war in Ukraine.
Over in the UK, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is holding the first meeting of his reshuffled cabinet. The new team includes former Prime Minister David Cameron.
It's rare for a former leader and a non-lawmaker to take a senior UK government post. Cameron led the government during the Brexit period, triggering the country's withdrawal from the European Union.
Sunak was under growing pressure to fire one of his secretaries who became a controversial conservative figure. In the reshuffle, Cameron was appointed to the post of Foreign Secretary.
Iceland has declared a state of emergency and more than 3,000 residents are urged to evacuate from the small coastal town of Grindavik.
This comes as authorities anticipate the imminent eruption of a volcano in the country's southwestern peninsula.
There was so much panic, so many earthquakes, just one person holding things while the other one was packing. And
I survived 3 volcanoes, 3 earthquakes before, and this is the biggest one. So, as you can see.
Are you scared of the eruption?
Yeah, of course. That's why we escaped from our town. Yeah, so sorry, but we can go.
And to round up headlines from Europe, we take a look at Lisbon, Portugal. One of the largest tech events in the world has kicked off, the Web Summit. The opening night on Monday was led by the new CEO, Catherine Maher.
The former CEO resigned due to a controversy around the Irish entrepreneur's tweets on Israel. He suggested Israel was committing war crimes following the October 7 attacks by Hamas. The new CEO addressed the controversy.
Patty will be the first to admit that his tweets were divisive and that they hurt people, including people who consider themselves part of this community. He's since apologized and stepped down. I think it's important to say that I believe that everyone, everywhere, has the right to express their views about any topic, including what's happening in the world.
And now, shifting gears, we have the headlines from the countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is asking the Treasury to bar Chinese battery firms and minerals from electric vehicle tax credits. Manchin chairs the Senate Energy Committee.
In a letter on Monday, he raised concerns to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. He pointed to reports that Chinese battery companies actively pursue business opportunities to take advantage of the credits.
The senator wrote, U.S. tax credits, quote, cannot be allowed to be hijacked by adversaries engaging in mineral laundering.
China is responsible for 76% of the world's lithium-ion battery cell production. And now in the Indo-Pacific, the U.S. and South Korea are holding combined military drills. Naval drills kicked off today off the Korean peninsula's east coast.
The naval drills involved warships and aircraft from both sides. The training continues through Thursday.
In a city close to the border with North Korea, U.S. and South Korean militaries held a combined helicopter live fire drill. Apache helicopters from both sides participated.
On the same day, defense ministers of the United Nations Command met at the Defense Ministry in Seoul. They warned North Korea over its nuclear ambitions and threats.
A Russian government delegation has arrived in North Korea. The visit is the latest in a series of high-level meetings between Moscow and Pyongyang.
Russia's Minister of Natural Resources landed before daybreak this morning. An unidentified group of North Korean officials were waiting to greet him on the tarmac.
The Russian official first welcomed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un when he visited Russia in September. North Korea and Russia have discussed economic cooperation for years, but Russia hasn't followed through on major economic projects.
A railway renovation across their shared border is an exception. More recently, U.S. authorities have said that North Korea has sold weapons to Russia. North Korean authorities have not announced the agenda or duration of the visit.
Thailand has dropped plans for joint patrols with Chinese police following public backlash. It would have happened in high tourist areas. The country's tourism minister made the announcement today.
The proposal drew criticism online with concerns over national sovereignty and a rebuke from the country's police chief.
The original plan was meant to boost tourist confidence, especially among Chinese visitors. They accounted for over 1/4 of foreign tourist arrivals before COVID-19. For the same reason, Thailand waived visa requirements for Chinese nationals in September. And over in India, rescue operations continue for the 40 workers trapped inside a collapsed tunnel. Rescuers began drilling with heavy machinery today.
Excavators have been removing debris for 2 days to carve out a path for the workers. Rescue teams had been waiting for the delivery of a wide steel pipe. It will be pushed into a debris opening to pull out the workers safely.
The 3-mile tunnel was being built on a national highway. It caved in early Sunday morning in northern India. Now over to China, where there's a convenience store that isn't so convenient. Take a look at this tiny shop hanging on the side of a steep cliff.
This store is located 400 feet above ground in a National Geological Park in central China. People climbing the cliff usually take around 90 minutes to reach the shop, and there they can grab a free bottle of water.
Chinese media says workers use zip lines to replenish the stock every day, and only one staff member is inside the store at any given time.
A person on Chinese social media nicknamed the tiny shop the most inconvenient convenience store.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, no full bellies. All around the world, parents are struggling to feed their children. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. COVID, conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we're fed up. Fed up with the fact that hunger robs children of their childhood. Fed up with the lack of progress. Fed up with the injustice. Help us brighten the lives of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients. Prevent children from dropping out of school. Support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give before December 31st can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Childhood without food is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org today.
If you've been injured in an accident that's not your fault and you don't have an attorney, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to tell you what your case is potentially worth. Hello, I'm Gina, along with spokesperson Rob. Rob, tell the folks at home who should be calling right now.
Well, just like you said, Gina, anyone who's been injured in an accident that was not your fault, you don't have an attorney, give us a call right now, and we're going to let you know what your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Rob. So what kind of calls have we been seeing today?
Well, Gina, we're getting calls from all types of accidents today. Work accidents, slip and falls, truck accidents, and most commonly, car accidents. So if you were injured in an accident that was not your fault, you don't have an attorney, take that first step, pick up that phone and give us a call. We're going to answer your questions and we'll let you know how much money you can get for your accident.
Thanks, Rob. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Go ahead, don't hesitate, take that first step and call now.
Welcome back. Police in Houston are praising an ex-con for his heroic actions when he pulled a wounded police officer to safety.
John Lally has served time for burglary, gun possession, and other crimes. Now he's a good Samaritan.
Investigators say a carjacking suspect shot Officer Jay Gibson. John Lally was driving on a Houston freeway when he saw police lights flashing behind him. He initially thought officers were pulling him over, but soon realized more than half a dozen vehicles had crashed.
Moments later, Lally saw Officer Gibson get shot. He jumped out of his car and ran to help, but found himself in the middle of a shootout between police and the suspect. According to local media, he helped another officer drag the wounded Gibson to safety behind a vehicle.
The wounded officer was shot in the leg and is recovering. Police say the suspect later died at a hospital.
The Houston Police Department plans to formally thank and acknowledge Lally for his heroism. In central Colorado, a missing hiker was found in the Rocky Mountains after getting lost in a severe snowstorm. Rescue crews found footprints in 6 to 8 inches of fresh snow and followed them. The tracks led them to what they thought was a rock, but it was the missing hiker. The person was alive, but very hypothermic and only wearing a cotton hoodie.
According to the county search and rescue crews, they spent 3 hours trying to warm the hiker up. Crews initially used ropes to lower the hiker, who could eventually walk the remaining stretch of the slope. And a new study shows cutting out 1 teaspoon of salt from your diet each day can help lower your blood pressure just as much as blood pressure medication. Researchers at Northwestern University say the benefits of lowering the amount of sodium in a person's diet were dramatic. Between 70 and 75% of people studied saw a drop in their blood pressure, whether they already were on medicine or not. A teaspoon of salt is about 2,300 milligrams. That's the top daily limit for people over 14 years old. However, the American Heart Association recommends a diet with less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium each day. The study was published Saturday in the Journal of American Medical Association. And if your favorite holiday tradition is grabbing a blanket, a hot drink, and the TV remote, this job might be the job for you. CableTV.com is looking for a chief of cheer to watch 25 movies in 25 days. The chosen candidate has to keep track of each flick and rank them based on nostalgia, heartwarming storytelling, and holiday cheer. For the work, the chief of cheer will get $2,500 plus a year's subscription to 7 streaming services. The best part? There's no list to stick to. The winner gets to pick their favorite holiday movie, whether that's a Hallmark rom-com, an animated classic, or an action thriller like Die Hard. CableTV.com is accepting applications on their website through December 1st.
Maybe it's time to switch jobs here, Steph.
I don't know about that, Chris. I think we got it pretty good.
That's all for today's news.
Thank you for tuning in.
Feel free to reach out to us with any news tips or feedback at news.today@ntd.com.
And we'll be back with more stories tomorrow.